I can't go on with the labor pains starting. Yet, despite this, the sister-in-law said, "It's okay, the baby won't be born right away. Please take good care of my 3 kids for 6 days." And off she went on a trip, forcing her own 3 kids onto me. Taking care of the naughty kids, the interval between pains gradually shortened. I'm in trouble. What should I do? Although it was hard even to stand, the children made a big fuss saying, "We're hungry." In the midst of all this, suddenly I was struck by intense labor pains. The pain was so intense that I couldn't even call an ambulance, and I collapsed, consciousness fading. At that moment, it felt like someone was calling my name. I am Emily, a 32-year-old housewife, living with the parents of my childhood friend turned husband, Tim. While many people might pity me for living with my in-laws, I had no resistance to it because they had been kind to me since I was a child. Thank you so much, Emily-chan, really. You're just like my own daughter. Thank you very much as well. Being so kind to me, a daughter-in-law. My in-laws always express words of gratitude towards me. However, amidst the overflowing happiness of married life, only the existence of my brother-in-law's wife bothered me. Don't get cocky just because you're the eldest son's wife. I have no such intention at all. Humph. I can't stand that complacent attitude of yours either. You're after my father-in-law's assets, aren't you? While it's true that my in-laws are wealthy, it's not certain that my husband, their eldest son, will inherit everything. Yet, my sister-in-law seemed to have convinced herself that I married into the family for the inheritance. Consequently, my sister-in-law who lived nearby would often come to our house to compete with me. Father-in-law, mother-in-law. I'll make tea instead of Emily. Oh, Catherine, you shouldn't have. Emily only ever serves tea, right? I brought some delicious Japanese sweets. Then my sister-in-law looked at me and smirked triumphantly. Though I had no intention of competing with her, she took an attitude of keeping me in check and always played the good wife in front of other family members. So I resigned myself to patience, telling myself that as long as everyone got along, it was fine. My sister-in-law had 3 children and she seemed very proud. She brought them to her parents' home as if she flaunted them in front of me, who had yet to become pregnant. All the children, including the eldest son, who was 5, were boys, and all at the age where they were full of mischief. Each visit to our home resulted in a rampage, with various things getting broken, which was a problem. However, because I had no child, there was also envy towards such a sister-in-law. Even though you're the eldest son's wife, you're useless if you can't have children, laughs. We have 3 sons, so our child is guaranteed to be the heir here. Lucky us. My sister-in-law, who looked down on me with a smug smirk, tensed when she learned of my pregnancy. My husband, of course, and my in-laws and brother-in-law were all delighted. But only my sister-in-law, with a bitter expression, ungroundedly asserted, "It's bound to be a girl." After that, she also tried to leave her child at our house. But my mother-in-law kindly refused, saying, "Now is an important time." I was relieved, but it seemed to intensify my sister-in-law's hatred towards me. Once it was known that the child in my belly was a boy. As I entered a stable period, the actions of my flustered sister-in-law became increasingly radical. You may be aiming for the heir of this house, but it won't go as you plan. A shiver ran down my spine when my sister-in-law, with a face like a demon, whispered this into my ear. I wasn't particularly obsessed with the gender of my child, but her ominous words gave me an unpleasant premonition. One day, while I was cleaning my in-laws' room, my sister-in-law, who visits as usual, interfered assertively. "I'll clean the room for Dad and Mom. I must clean it nicely." She took the cleaning tools from me and began to clean to show off at me. That alone would have been fine, but, "Emily, come here. Help me, quick." What? What happened? I want to wipe the floor under the sofa, so let's move it. I'll lift this side, so you lift that side. I instinctively moved to help but remembered that as a pregnant woman, I should not lift heavy things, and I refused. My sister-in-law clicked her tongue in annoyance. Moreover, when I tried to go down from the second floor to the first floor, my sister-in-law, who was on the stairs, bumped into me vigorously. I nearly fell, but I managed to grasp the handrail with both hands and avert danger. Oh, sorry. Although she pretended to apologize, my sister-in-law had a frustrated expression on her face. Is she targeting my unborn child? Filled with anxiety, I took certain measures in case of an emergency. The thing I feared happened after I entered the final month of pregnancy. The due date was approaching, and one day, the mother-in-law had to leave the house for a few days to take care of a relative who fell ill. I'm worried about leaving you, Emily, especially now that you're in your final month. Mother-in-law. It seems to still be all right, so please go without worrying. At that time, I thought everything would be fine since the due date was still ahead. However, it seems Catherine got wind of the mother-in-law being away and brought her 3 children to the in-laws' house on the day she left. Hey, Emily. I'm going on a trip starting today. So, take care of the kids. That's going to be a problem. Mother-in-law is not here right now. But you're here, aren't you? Actually, I've been feeling contractions since a little while ago. It might be labor, so I'm preparing to be admitted to the hospital now. So, I can't help you. The moment she heard that, Catherine, wearing an eerie smile, said, "Oh, has your labor started? Kids don't get born that easily. Everyone from my house is on a business trip today. So I'll be in trouble if you don't look after them. Don't be unreasonable. What's impossible is impossible. Ahaha. Take good care of my children, okay? Wait a minute." Ignoring my words, Catherine pushed me, who was standing in front of the door, and went out. While taking care of her children who began to cry saying they were hungry, I was suddenly hit by intense labor pains. I tried to call an ambulance but collapsed due to the unbearable pain. Emily, hang in there. I felt like I heard the mother-in-law's voice as my consciousness was fading. I woke up to the pain of contractions coming every 3 minutes. I heard the sound of an ambulance siren, and there was my mother-in-law beside me. Mother-in-law, why did you come back? We'll talk later. Emily, you have to be strong for the baby in your belly. It seems that the mother-in-law asked the father-in-law to take care of Catherine's children. Afterwards, I was rushed to the maternity clinic where I had been going and was able to give birth to a boy without any issues. Holding my adorable child to my chest, I felt truly relieved. It was good to have come back to the house just in case. According to the mother-in-law, on the way to the relative's house, she spotted Catherine walking amicably with an unknown man. Becoming suspicious upon seeing the large travel bag, she covertly approached, and I only heard unbelievable words from Catherine. I dumped the kids on my pregnant sister-in-law. I don't care even if her labor has started. Shocked upon hearing this, the mother-in-law hurried back and found me collapsed, calling an ambulance for me. I'm so glad the baby is safe. Once again, I thanked the mother-in-law. 6 days after being discharged, when I was at home, I received a call from Catherine, who had returned from her trip without a shred of guilt on her face. Thanks for babysitting, I'm coming to pick up the kids now, and she unilaterally hung up the phone. Assuming that neither the mother-in-law nor her husband were back yet, Catherine arrived humming a tune. Thanks for watching the kids. Seeing the 2 people who should not be there waiting, she momentarily showed a shocked expression. Why are you here? The brother-in-law speaks without knowing about the trip. I didn't hear anything about the trip. Who have you been going with and where until now? Well, my mom is back home, you see. She suddenly got sick, so I went to take care of her. I couldn't take the children because your mother wasn't there. I had no choice but to leave them with Emily. The sister-in-law persisted in playing innocent, and mother-in-law amiably said, That's odd, isn't it? I saw you with a man you claimed not to know. You were holding a big bag. What, you saw me, mother-in-law? The sister-in-law's eyes widened almost to the point of overflowing. He's my cousin. Is that so? You seemed quite close though. Even so, what were you thinking with leaving your 3 children with Emily? Who said she might have started labor pains, that is? It's because Emily said she would take care of them. There's no way I said that. Then, the sister-in-law suddenly points at me and starts making a fuss, saying, "This is a conspiracy." She's a big liar. I have been putting up with Emily's harassment all this time. It was unbearable. Please kick her out. Crying her eyes out and gesturing emphatically, the sister-in-law makes her case to the family, acting like a veritable drama queen. The mother-in-law and the sister-in-law's husband can only wear baffled expressions. Although I am the one who has been harassed, if I argue back here, the sister-in-law probably won't back down. I don't need to be considerate to such a person anymore. Though I had been silently observing the sister-in-law who acted without any regard. At this point, I played an undeniable audio proof. Ahaha. Take good care of my kids, okay? I hope something terrible happens to you and your unborn child. The sister-in-law's boisterous laugh can be heard from the voice recorder I pulled out. That's not my voice. This is a trap set up by Emily. Oh, should I show the video too then? I pressed the play button on my phone. Displayed on the screen were various malicious acts committed by the sister-in-law. This is when you tried to push me down the stairs. And then this is. When you're trying to knock down the heavy bookshelf towards me. When did you get such a thing? Actually, feeling my life was in danger due to the persistent harassment from my sister-in-law, I had installed surveillance cameras and transferred the recorded data to my mobile phone so I could view them anytime. Catherine, what kind of person are you? No, it's not like that, Mom. There's enough evidence here. Stop making excuses. The sister-in-law, confronted in a strong tone by the mother-in-law, glared at me fiercely. It's all because you're pregnant with a boy. If you give birth to an heir, my share of the inheritance will decrease, won't it? What? You targeted my child's life for such a reason? I was the first to give birth to a boy. So, I have the right to receive everything. Everyone couldn't close their open mouths at the sister-in-law's absurd logic. Even if your child had the right to inherit, you yourself will lose that right after seeing this, won't you? I don't understand what you mean. I'll make you understand right away. Then, I hit the sister-in-law with the final video. Hello, hey, darling. I want to go on a trip soon. I'm so tired of my husband. I want to be with you forever. The video showed the sister-in-law flirting on the phone with her lover. The brother-in-law, peering at the screen, gradually turned into a demon-like expression. What on earth is this? No, this is. Not only did you do terrible things to Emily and forced her to take care of the children, but you also went on a cheating trip. I'm divorcing you. Leave the kids and get out of here right away. Suddenly, the sister-in-law screamed in a way I had never heard before, and clung to the brother-in-law. Wait a minute. If I get divorced, I won't inherit even 1 penny, will I? Are you still talking about money even now? The sister-in-law, forcibly shaken off by the brother-in-law, turned towards me this time. Emily, please stop being mean to me anymore. What are you saying? This is the malice you've shown me, isn't it? No, it's already beyond that. I'm submitting this to the police. Why the police? You targeted me and my unborn child, didn't you? Please spare me from the police. I was wrong. I apologize, like this double exclamation mark. The sister-in-law clung desperately to my feet with her face, where the makeup was terribly ruined by tears. But there was no trace of intent to forgive her in me. I immediately submitted a damage report and the evidence data to the police. Catherine, my sister-in-law, ended up with a criminal record for trying to inflict injuries on me. Afterwards, Catherine and her husband got divorced. Testimonies from neighbors revealed that Catherine rarely took care of her own children. So their father, my brother-in-law, got custody. The brother-in-law demanded $2 million in consolation money and a monthly child support of $50,000 from Catherine, and also sought a payment of $2 million in consolation money from her affair partner. Eventually, Catherine was abandoned by her lover and disowned by her own family. Now, she lives in a rundown apartment. She works a night job and continues to pay the consolation money and child support while getting by. Catherine's children are being cared for by everyone, cooperatively by their grandparents, uncle, and my husband. As the family approaches them with love, their honesty and kindness have begun to shine, though they are mischievous. They cherish my child like a real sibling, and I am very happy now.
Did the baby get born while I was traveling? Despite having a funeral ahead, the son-in-law called in a carefree tone. Yes, the baby was born safely. Having not expected his mother-in-law to answer his daughter's phone, I heard a click of the tongue, and Dick, what is it? Put my wife on. I want to talk to her directly. Our daughter has passed away. What? Come to the funeral home right now? No kidding. That's a black joke. Laughs. The son-in-law laughed sarcastically, refusing to believe my words. Everything is your fault. You will definitely pay. I whispered softly and hung up the phone. I am Emily, 58 years old. Just a few days ago, I had a daughter who was turning 30. She now lies quietly inside a white coffin. Touching her now cold cheeks, calling out to her Catherine, she does not twitch at all. As I look at her face, which has become doll-like, recent events circulate through my mind. If only I had rushed to Catherine sooner at that time. Just thinking about it fills my chest with unbearable regret, and tears flow endlessly. 1 week ago, my daughter, living far away, called me with an anxious voice. Mom, what should I do? I'm starting to get contractions, and I'm so scared. It's your first childbirth. Of course, it's only natural to be worried. I called the hospital and they said to come in when the contractions are 10 minutes apart. I'm alone, and it feels so daunting. Isn't Tom working from home? And isn't your mother-in-law living with you? Despite knowing the expected delivery date, both her husband and mother-in-law, who had booked an overseas trip, left my daughter as she started having contractions. The midwife will handle the delivery. It'll be fine, they said and departed. I was chilled to the bone, wondering what kind of people they were. I told my daughter to go to the hospital by taxi if the pain got stronger. And I immediately jumped into the car. My cheerful daughter is becoming so weak. It is about a 3-hour drive from my place to where my daughter lives. But of course, I got caught in traffic, and it took me 5 hours to arrive. When I finally arrived at my daughter's home, it was already dark outside. Yet, the lights in the house were not on. Did she go to the hospital? Or, surely not. Shaking off the ominous premonition, I opened the front door to find my daughter collapsed there. When I rushed to hold her, I saw that her clothes were wet, and the floor was soaked from her water breaking. Moreover, seeing my daughter's face for the first time in a while, it was drastically emaciated for a pregnant woman in her last month. Panicking, I steadied my trembling hands and hastily called an ambulance. After arriving at the hospital and regaining consciousness, My daughter was deemed unable to give birth naturally and was taken to the operating room. Please, let both the child and my daughter be safe. I fervently continued to pray in front of the operating room. After a while, I heard a baby's cry, and the doctor who came out said, "She's a healthy girl." I was relieved and about to sigh when the doctor, who looked sternly, delivered unthinkable words. "Your daughter lost a lot of blood and has consumed a lot of energy. So we need to observe her for a while. Please be prepared for any possibilities." What? No. The daughter, exhausted, was wheeled from the operating room to her hospital room. Her hands were punctured with numerous 4 needles, and she was also wearing an oxygen mask. The joy of the birth of her child was fleeting, as we became solely concerned with Catherine's condition. To cheer us up, perhaps, the nurse let the daughter hold the newborn baby. Then, Catherine slightly opened her eyes, smiled, and with tears streaming down her face, whispered, "I'm so glad you were born safely." 2 days later, we were able to have a conversation with the daughter, who had regained a little energy. "I'm sorry for causing you trouble, Mom. As long as you and the baby are safe, that's all that matters." And I asked Tom to let me go back to my parents' home for the delivery, but he refused. I thought he had at least canceled the trip, though. It's just too cruel to leave Catherine while she's in labor. Yeah, I may not be able to protect the baby if things stay this way. With a resolved look, the daughter asked me to do something for her. After I accomplished what she requested on that day and reported back, Catherine closed her eyes with a relieved expression and fell back into sleep. I hope she recovers. Her complexion is so poor. I prayed desperately, time and again, but my wishes were not heard, and day by day, my daughter's condition worsened. I called my son-in-law several times during this period, but no matter how many times I tried, he never answered, nor the message. 3 days later, despite all medical efforts, my daughter passed away, leaving behind her newborn child. And I'm sorry for being such a failure of a daughter. Mom, please save the baby. She was not the kind of person to say such things. Catherine, I'm so sorry for not being able to get to you right away. My heart was overwhelmed by sorrow and agony upon losing my precious daughter. But I can't be shattered by grief alone. After that, I repeatedly tried to call my son-in-law to inform him of my daughter's death, but it never connected. In desperation, I went to my daughter's house to look up the phone number of the hotel where they were supposed to be staying. While searching for a travel itinerary or something similar, my daughter's diary appeared from a drawer. What is this? This is terrible. The diary contained a truth beyond my imagination. As I read on, I understood the true meaning behind Catherine's words when she called herself a failure of a daughter. My hands and heart trembled uncontrollably, and then I collapsed on the spot. I will never forgive the person who made her go through this. I'll make him regret it. Holding my daughter's diary close to my chest, I made that strong vow. A few days later, the son-in-law returned the call with a carefree voice. I'm back in Japan. The husband has returned. Was the baby born safely? Yes, the baby is full of life. This is Catherine's phone, right? The voice seems different. Yes, It's been a while, Tom. I am Catherine's mother. Oh, mother-in-law, huh? Tell me sooner. Quickly put Catherine on. I can't do that, because my daughter has passed away. What? It's because you left her alone when her labor pains started. Passed away? Are you joking? It's too heavy. The funeral will start soon. If you feel sorry for your daughter, come right now. I just told him the location of the funeral and hung up the phone immediately. Despite his repeated calls, I ignored them. I didn't want him to interrupt my farewell to my daughter. The funeral proceeded quietly when the time came. It must have been so painful to leave the baby behind. I'm sorry I didn't notice your suffering earlier, Catherine. Tears were unstoppable, and no matter how much I wiped them away, they wouldn't stop. Next to me, I could tell my husband was trying hard not to cry, biting his lip and looking down. After the cremation was over, and as I was holding the small box with Catherine inside close to my chest, the son-in-law and his mother finally arrived. Observing the mournful faces of the attendees, they were stunned. What's more, they came straight from the airport. He was in an aloha shirt, and she was wearing a large straw hat and sunglasses. What's with those ridiculous outfits? Can't you at least wear morning attire? Well, we were told to hurry, so we had no choice. Before you rebut, apologize to your wife sincerely. Tom, when I thought he was going to break down in tears looking at the portrait, he snorted with a nasal laugh. I should be the one wanting an apology. Who's going to do the house chores now? Anyone can give birth. She was a hopeless wife. How could you say something so awful? I'm just being honest. Yes, that's right. As I clenched my fists tightly, the nails digging into my palms, I felt a rush of pain. My usually gentle husband's eyes were bloodshot, his face terrifying in a way I'd never seen. Yet Tom didn't seem to care. So, was the kid a girl after all? Yes, that's right. Damn, if she had at least birthed a boy, we could have had an heir. She was a failure of a wife even till the end. It was useless. I glared at him, suppressing the impulse to hit him right there. I don't need the kid, raise it yourselves. We intended to from the start. Moreover, you and Catherine are divorced now. Divorced? I submitted the divorce papers as per Catherine's request. You wrote it yourself to threaten her, didn't you? Even though Catherine had endured so much harassment, believing that the child to be born needed a father. So she entrusted me with the divorce papers, saying that she could not save the child by herself. Catherine got the parental rights, so we, as a couple, take responsibility to raise the child. You submitted the papers without my permission. But since Catherine is gone, it's natural for me to have parental rights. I'll raise the child, so send me child support. Do you even understand what you're saying? Yeah, hand over the kid. In return for looking after them for free, you send money. How terrible. We've already applied to be the minor's legal guardian. So you're the one who has to pay child support. You're greedier than I thought. But Catherine had a hefty life insurance policy, so I'll pay around $100,000. I was petrified by my son-in-law's words. His way of speaking sounded as if Catherine's departure was already planned. Could it be that everything went perfectly as planned? Catherine served our purpose too? So, You deliberately left my daughter behind. Well, yay. Ha ha ha. I nearly collapsed from the shock, but my husband quickly supported me. He was shaking his shoulders, whispering, "I can't believe it." The relatives around us began to murmur and exchange glances. When Catherine informed her mother-in-law that the baby was a girl, she was yelled at. "You're a useless daughter-in-law if you can't give birth to a boy." Her husband spat at her. "You're a failure and utterly worthless woman. You disgust me." I was so sad, but I thought they would adore the baby once she was born, so I had to endure. I began to read my daughter's diary, which I had pulled out of my bag. Under the scorching midsummer sun, I was forced by my mother-in-law to go shopping. When I came back home, I didn't get a break. I was ordered to pull weeds in the garden. After that, one chore after another was demanded. And if she was not satisfied with the dinner I made, it was often thrown out. And I had to redo it. What should I do? The reason why my heavily pregnant daughter was so worn out was all written in this diary. Bringing out such things without permission, you're like a thief. Moreover, you deliberately made sure we couldn't contact her, didn't you? My daughter wanted to return to her parents' home for the birth, at least. How lonely and hopeless she must have felt, being forced to give up, being neglected. Like I care about that. They showed no signs of remorse. It seemed like they didn't feel the gravity of their sins. "Enough is enough," echoed my husband's shout. Not only our anger, but also the anger of the relatives knew no bounds. And they were made to apologize on the spot. He finally changed his attitude, pleading as if he had turned over a new leaf when he noticed his situation. "All right, I get it. Just give me a break. This isn't the end of it. The president of the company you work for will know what you did to our daughter. And you'll likely be fired." "What? Why? The president and I were classmates. The world is small, you see." "Not only that, the neighbors know about it too. When I went to my daughter's house, a worried neighbor spoke to us. So I informed them that Catherine had passed away and explained the circumstances up to now. Feel the weight of the sin you've committed and live in remorse for the rest of your life. You don't have to go that far. I had one more crucial piece of information to give to the despondent couple. Also, I am the beneficiary of my daughter's insurance money." "What? Are you serious?" Tom and his mother looked at each other with shocked expressions. A piece of paper was sandwiched in my daughter's diary. It was a life insurance form. Without telling anyone, my daughter had changed the beneficiary to me. "All your plans have fallen apart. That must be very disappointing for you, isn't it?" "No way. I was counting on that money. And another thing. We've already filed a complaint with the police for abandoning your duty to protect. Adding the crime of abandoning my daughter with the intention of claiming her life insurance will surely complicate things for you. The police. Please spare me from that. Please forgive me." Tom and his mother seemed now pale, bowed deeply, rubbing their heads on the floor, but I had no intention of forgiving them. "I will never forgive you. Thoroughly taste the hell on this earth." Eventually, a police car that someone from the relatives had called arrived. As they were taken away, the pathetically wailing two were sent off by everyone present with cold stares. Afterwards, we hired a lawyer and demanded child support from Tom and his mother. We hope that the two who drove my daughter to death would be severely punished, regardless of what crime they commit, even if they get out of prison. With Tom being fired and his mother being pointed at by the neighbors, that means their peaceful life like before will never come back. We have taken in the baby that my daughter gave birth to and lived together. The insurance money that was deposited is planned to be used entirely for the baby's living expenses. The sorrow of losing my daughter will not disappear. There are many moments when I am saved by this child's smile. From now on, we will pour love and raise this child, even for the part of my daughter who could not fulfill her feelings.
Tom boasted about changing the ownership of the house to his name, even though my father had just passed away. I felt dizzy listening to him. Changing ownership isn't that simple. I thought maybe Tom was misunderstanding something. Now the house is mine. LOL. If you have a problem with that, let's get a divorce. LOL. Fine, let's divorce then. But won't you regret it? To my surprise, Tom responded in a dumbfounded voice. Huh? I won't regret it. LOL. With a face as if he wanted to say, "Are you kidding me?" Tom replied. So, he won't regret it. Then I won't hold back. And I don't want to hear any complaints later. I smirked at Tom's naive thinking. My name is Emily. I'm 35 years old and a city office worker. With my serious personality, I feel it's the perfect job for me. My parents were overjoyed when I passed the civil service exam. That's because my father always told me to choose a stable career. It's uncertain whether being a city office worker will always be stable. But for now, I think I can continue this job without any problems. There's a reason why my father emphasized stability. After graduating from university, my father joined a startup. The company only lasted a few years, and he struggled to find another job. He then started his own restaurant and steadily expanded the business. Since most of the locations were renovated vacant or owned properties, the rent was only a small amount. Over 35 years, he accumulated significant wealth, but he also faced many challenges. So, he probably didn't want me to go through the same hardships. I'm content with my stable city office worker job. I might not be rich, but I live comfortably. I just hope for peaceful days ahead. I'll be home late tomorrow. Don't need dinner. How many times has Tom told me this? While washing the dishes, I dried my hands and turned to respond. Again? Does the factory really require that much overtime? It's a busy period right now. Tom works in a semiconductor factory and has been there for 18 years. His daily routine involves processing parts on a production line for 8 hours, which sounds really tough to me. But according to Tom, it's easier than a job that requires a lot of thinking. Right, there's been a shortage of semiconductors recently. Must be tough. Yeah. So, I might be coming home late for a while. I understand. Take care. He has been coming home late recently, and sometimes he doesn't return until the date changes. I can't imagine he's working until that hour, so he's probably out drinking after work. I can understand wanting to relieve a tired body with alcohol, but it seemed like he was doing it too often. However, I can't bring myself to tell Tom about it. If I told him not to drink when he's already exhausted from his demanding job, he might get angry. Fortunately, Tom should be paying for the drinks from his allowance, so it wasn't too big of a problem. I watched as Tom headed to the bedroom and then stretched my shoulders. I've been having shoulder stiffness recently. Living out of sync with Tom has been mentally draining. Maybe that's why I've been so tense. I try to remind myself not to overthink things. I met Tom during my second year of high school. He went to a nearby boys' school and approached me during the homecoming. At first, I was reluctant when this younger guy asked for my contact, but I gave in due to his persistence. When I asked him why he was so interested in me, just a regular girl, he said he liked my vibe. I always thought Tom had a flirty demeanor, so I was initially quite wary. However, I soon realized he was surprisingly devoted, and my feelings for him grew stronger. Even after high school graduation, and as I went to college and became a city office worker, Tom remained my partner. We got married when I was 27. Unfortunately, we haven't been blessed with children since then. I think our chances now might be slim. But I believe a life with just the two of us is okay. If I can continue my life with him unchanged, that's all I want. I think Tom feels the same way. Amidst our busy yet peaceful marital life, my phone rang. Hello? Hello, Emily? Oh, thank goodness. Are you at work right now? Yes, I am. What's up? It's rare for my mother to call during working hours on a weekday, so it must be something urgent. I asked her what had happened. It's terrible. Your father collapsed, and after the tests, they said it's colorectal cancer. Cancer? You're kidding. The word cancer from my mother's mouth made me doubt my ears. No one in our family had ever had cancer. But, considering that my father, a businessman, had neglected his health checkups, it was plausible. It's true. It's quite advanced. But isn't cancer treatable these days? In your father's case, they say he might only have a few months left. A few months? That can't be. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. But my father was only 60, and the rapid progression of the cancer made sense, especially since its detection was late. No matter how much medical technology advances, curing late-stage cancer is challenging, my mother tearfully explained. I understand. I'll come home for a while. I'll also let Tom know. Thank you, Emily. My father means the world to me. Not rushing to his side during his crisis wasn't an option. Tom would surely understand. That day, I finished my work with a distracted mind and went home. Unusually, Tom was home early, and seeing my pale face, he spoke to me. What's wrong? You look upset. Tom was drinking beer on the sofa. I relayed to Tom exactly what my mother had told me and also mentioned that I planned to go to my parents' house for a while. That sounds tough. I understand. Please be with your father during this time. Thank you. But I won't be able to cook. That's okay. I've been coming home late from work anyway. I'll manage eating out. Just remember to eat nutritious food once in a while. I know. Surprisingly, Tom listened calmly. Feeling relieved, I started packing my things, preparing to head to my parents' home the next day. When it was time to sleep, as I was about to enter the room, I heard Tom talking from his bedroom. He must have been on a phone call. I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but I stopped in my tracks when I caught a certain word. It seems he's going to kick the bucket. About the thing we discussed earlier, can something be done? Kick the bucket? Was he talking about my father? Yes. I see. Got it. Please help out. I didn't know whom he was talking to or what favor he was asking, but it was clear he was discussing my father. And yet, why use such a word? I've never heard Tom say anything bad about my father before. It's not like they were best buddies. But I didn't think Tom was cold-hearted enough to not be concerned about my ailing father. Yet, was he suggesting that he didn't care about my father? Even though he's terminally ill, my father is still alive. To discuss such matters with a stranger, something's amiss. For the first time, I felt a sense of mistrust towards Tom. From then on, I couldn't shake off my suspicions about him. Even though Tom kindly saw me off with a cheerful "take care," I was constantly bothered by what I'd overheard him saying on the phone. I felt Tom was plotting something. That was all about my father's finances. I had not told Tom how much wealth my father possessed. I thought discussing money might be a potential cause for trouble. The inheritance would be discussed when the time came. Now wasn't the moment. I didn't hide it, but I didn't see a reason to bring it up either. But what if Tom knew about my father's assets? What if he was after that money? No, I need to stop overthinking this. Pushing away the negative thoughts, I took care of my father, enjoying our chats. Thank you, Emily. And Laura. I'm a lucky man. Why so formal? Don't say such things. Exactly. It's too early for gratitude. As my mother and I tried to lighten the mood with laughter, only my father sat there with a contented smile, as if he had accepted his fate. That final chapter with my father ended 3 months later. My mother and I weren't prepared for this sudden goodbye. During the funeral, I felt numb, unable to accept the fact that he was gone. Tom, on the other hand, seemed as lively as a fish in water, which made me suspicious. It took about a week after the funeral for my emotions to stabilize. One day, as I was drinking alone in the living room, Tom approached. Finally, all the bothersome stuff is over. Leaning back with crossed arms and a cold look, he said this. Bothersome? Yeah. I was hoping your father would pass away sooner. But when he did, the funeral and all were quite a hassle. What kind of language is that? A person died, my father. How dare you say such a thing? I couldn't believe what Tom was saying and confronted him. Just as I suspected. Tom had been wishing for my father's early departure. I remembered the phone call I had overheard before. What was Tom's real intention? So, when do we get the inheritance? I've heard you're super rich. You must have a hefty inheritance. It was then that I understood Tom's real intentions. I had never imagined Tom was after my father's assets, especially since I had never discussed my family's finances with him. Nevertheless, it seemed that Tom had realized that his father had quite a fortune. You look like you're wondering how I know. I get it. We've always been super poor, struggling just to have 3 meals a day. Compared to that, your family seems well off, and your parents often go on trips, right? Just from that, I knew you guys were rich. That's why I consulted beforehand. Consulted? With whom? After Tom gleefully speculated about my family's financial situation, he indeed mentioned consulting someone. I recalled the day I heard Tom on the phone in his bedroom, wondering if that was the consultation he was referring to. I have a lawyer acquaintance. I asked him about Grandpa's inheritance. I'm going to get that inheritance for sure, haha. Really now? I was shocked that he discussed my father's inheritance with a stranger without my consent, especially when my father was still alive. I began to question if the man in front of me was truly my husband. I should be getting a response soon. Look forward to it, haha. Saying only that, Tom returned to the bedroom. He probably intended to contact the lawyer again. I was taken aback by Tom's outrageous behavior. Who on earth would investigate his wife's family inheritance without permission? Inheritance is a matter of my family, not something for Tom to interfere with. Growing suspicious of Tom's actions, I found it hard to speak with him. For some time, we lived in a Cold War, but the situation took a drastic turn a month later. Setting aside Tom's talk about inheritance, my father's assets were rightfully passed on to my mother and me. I inherited a fancy house worth $2 million from my father, and it felt overwhelming. I had no immediate plans to move into the inherited house, but it felt too precious to leave untouched. I pondered whether to turn it into a vacation home or sell it, when Tom spoke to me after a long silence. Hey Emily, how have you been? Haha. The irony of asking how have you been when living in the same house was not lost on me. I ignored his words and picked up a nearby book. Don't ignore me. I changed the name on the house you inherited to mine, haha. Upon hearing those shocking words, I looked up from the book I was about to read. What do you mean? I asked the lawyer I talked about to handle the procedure. The procedure to change the ownership? Exactly. I couldn't believe it. Not only that he did such a thing behind my back, but also the lawyer who accepted such a request. The house is now mine. If you have a problem with it, we can divorce, haha. Even though my father had just passed away, Tom was gleefully boasting about changing the name on the house. I felt dizzy. It shouldn't be so easy to change the ownership of a property. I thought maybe Tom was misunderstanding something. I contemplated whether to confront him now or plan a proper revenge later. His actions infuriated me, and it wasn't something I could easily forgive. I wanted to devise a proper plan and get back at him. Fine, let's divorce. Won't you regret it? Thinking I wouldn't agree to a divorce so easily, Tom responded with a surprised what? No, I won't regret it, haha. Tom replied with a face that seemed to say, are you stupid? So, he wouldn't regret it. Fine, then. If he comes crying later, it's not my problem. I smirked internally at Tom's naive thinking. After that, I used every means at my disposal to investigate Tom's background. First, I took paid leave and thoroughly searched Tom's room while he was at work. Tom's messy room was very dirty, with various items scattered on the floor. Among them, I found something and discreetly picked it up. I then fiddled with the computer on Tom's desk and opened the communication app. So this person is a lawyer. The exchange with a man named Robert White was truly terrible. Most of it was about money. And it was about how to steal money from us. I sighed in disbelief. I started to feel sorry for Tom, who was under the control of such a person. After that, I left the room and headed to a certain place. Repeating the painstaking work, I went to confirm Tom's unscrupulousness. The more I investigated, the more I was horrified to realize that I had been living with such a person. After completing the investigation into Tom's background and feeling completely disillusioned, I went to submit the divorce papers. It was easy to report once the necessary items were filled in, as Tom had brought up the topic of divorce. Once the divorce papers were accepted at the city hall, I officially divorced Tom. It was an unexpected divorce for me, but I no longer had any love for Tom who insulted my father. The old Tom is no more. As I found out, Tom was a terrible man. After submitting the divorce papers, our house was no longer mine. This house was originally bought under Tom's name and was mortgaged. I thought I should be the one to leave, but Tom never came back home after that day. He's probably living in the fancy house I inherited. I wonder if he's enjoying his life now. But I wonder how long that will last. I was thinking very calmly about what might happen to Tom. And 3 days later, Tom finally appeared in front of me. Emily, you've already filed for divorce, haven't you? He asked in an anxious voice as soon as he entered the house. To Tom, who suddenly returned and asked such an abrupt question, I responded with, what? So, we're already divorced. Tom's voice grew louder. He seemed very desperate. Yes. I submitted it 3 days ago. So now, we're strangers. What did you say? Despair spreads across Tom's face. Even though Tom was the one who asked for a divorce, I wish he wouldn't look at me like it's my fault. Why did you do something so selfish? Selfish? Weren't you the one who said we should get a divorce? What's with you now? Stunned by my valid point, Tom falls silent for a moment. I had an idea of why Tom suddenly blamed me for the divorce. Emily, please, marry me again. If not, I'm done. Tom now collapses to the floor, his head hanging in defeat. I look at him with pity and ask, oh, what happened? Something wrong? I pretty much knew what had happened, but I purposely asked him anyway. Earlier, some debt collectors came to me. I called White, but he seems to have changed his phone number. I can't get through to him at all. I also sent him an email, but he hasn't read it. That guy deceived me. White was the so-called lawyer. Tom's story was sporadic, but I had a general idea. I found betting tickets and casino receipts in Tom's room and inferred what he had been up to. Oh, so you've been addicted to gambling, huh? I found lots of betting tickets and casino receipts in your room. I even checked your entry history at a local gambling hall and found out you've been going there for almost a year. Is that why you ran out of money? I checked our joint account and found several unexplained withdrawals. You even took money from our savings. And then you were deceived by that lawyer? Yes, Tom had been indulging in gambling behind my back. When it was discussed that I would inherit my father's assets, he probably saw it as an opportunity. He had been consulting with a man named White, who claimed to be a lawyer, about how he could inherit the assets. Yes, that's right. I know gambling was wrong, but I was deceived by that guy too. It seems the fancy house you inherited isn't under my name. I'm going to go bankrupt. Isn't it pitiful? Please help me. I was past anger and simply astounded at the pathetic sight of my ex-husband. Had he forgotten his hopes for my father's death and his sacrilege? I couldn't even think of him as an ex-husband anymore. What are you talking about? Aren't you the one to blame? Feel sorry for you? Should I even? Mostly, being deceived is because you're so clueless. The assets I inherited from my father are called specific property, and they're not subject to property division. It's impossible to just change the name. Despite that, you were easily deceived by that White guy. How convenient for you. I will never forgive you in my life. Tom, seeing my firm and fierce expression, shrank back in fear. I walked past the pathetic Tom and opened the front door. Well, I'm moving to the house I got from my father. Please continue living in this house. You have a loan to repay, so do your best. Wait. I confidently walked away, leaving behind a desperate man calling out to me. A week later, I received a phone call on my smartphone. Surprisingly, the call was from Tom's mother. I hesitated, thinking she might blame me for the divorce, but it was the opposite. Ah, Emily. I'm so sorry. It seems our son has done something terrible. I don't even know how to apologize. No, you don't need to apologize for anything. No, I can't rest easy knowing what he's done. He even asked for help with repaying his debt. I'm just as shocked. I gave him a stern talking to. Told him to brace himself because I'm going to make him work hard at home. He won't have the chance to gamble again. He needs to learn the value of money. He'll handle both his job and chores by himself for a while. Tom's mother seemed furious about her son's indiscretions and was intent on making him go through tough times ahead. I couldn't help but smirk, wondering if Tom could endure his mother's strict guidance. This was punishment for disrespecting my father and trying to deceive me out of my inheritance. I didn't feel the slightest bit sorry for him. He should focus on repaying his debt. As I had declared, I moved into the luxurious house I inherited from my father. It was furnished, so I didn't need to buy anything. I did need to buy some minor items like clothing, which I had left at the old house. But thinking about my new, free life made me excited. The new house was spacious, almost too grand for just one person. I was pretty much done with marriage for now. But if time passed and I found someone nice, I would invite him over to this house. I bet he'd be so surprised he'd be floored. The mere thought of a future husband's reaction made me chuckle. Thank you, Dad. Grateful to my father for leaving me such a wonderful asset, I took a new step forward.
When I entered my mother's room, She was sitting on a chair with a solemn look on her face. Suddenly she said, "You can leave now." What do you mean? I mean, you don't have to live here anymore. But the company just recovered, and Dad's health is. Your elder sister and her husband will take care of things. I'm telling you to leave, you're no longer needed. Hurry back to Tokyo. My name is Emily, a 32-year-old office worker. After graduating from a local university, I moved to Tokyo for my job. For the past 10 years, I worked relentlessly, achieving results in my profession. Despite many promotions and earning a significant salary for my age, I have never been in a relationship and have been single for years. The surprising part is that I'm not particularly anxious about it. My friends often try to get me into dating mode, asking if I'm not pressured to get married, but to no avail. I believe the reason is my mother. She has never pressured me to get married or expressed a desire to see her grandchildren. In fact, she never says much to me at all. She just wasn't interested from the beginning. My mother has always been more interested in my elder sister. My sister is very beautiful, tall, and well known for her looks in our hometown. After high school, she even did some modeling in Tokyo, which probably added to her reputation. My mother, always proud of her, would show her off in town almost every day. On the other hand, I might have taken after my father and wasn't as attractive. While I did well academically, I wasn't exceptionally gifted. So, my mother probably wasn't as interested in me. My sister always got new clothes, while I mostly got her hand-me-downs. Regarding my career, whenever I asked for advice, Mom would just say, "Do whatever you want." Although it can be seen as liberal, to me, it felt more like she was neglecting me. My sister, always pampered and treated like a princess, grew up to be selfish and somewhat manipulative. She acts kind to outsiders, but she's truly terrible to me. When we were younger, she'd say things like, "Don't walk beside me, it's embarrassing being seen walking with you." She would also take my allowance from me. So, I've always had a hard time with her and barely see her since I moved to Tokyo. However, out of the blue, I got a call from my mother. I thought it must be serious for her to call me. Picking up the phone in a hurry, she said, "Your father collapsed." I left work early and rushed back to my hometown. My father had suffered from a stroke and was stable for now, but needed rest. When I reached the hospital room, he was sleeping. My mother then beckoned me to the hospital lounge. There, she shared a shocking truth with me. "Actually, we have a debt of about $2 million US. What? Why so much?" "Well, the business hasn't been doing well. Our family ran a factory that produced parts. My father took over from my grandfather and raised my sister and me. He managed to support both of us through college. I never imagined the business was struggling that much. Moreover, I felt something was off. My mother handled the finances at the company. So, they should have noticed the debt much earlier. Why did they let the debt inflate this much? But that's not the concern right now. They need to repay the debt as soon as possible." Upon returning to the hospital room, my dad woke up. "Dad, Emily, it's been a while. You came all the way to see me." "Yes. Why did you push yourself until you collapsed?" "I'm sorry, I heard about the debt." "Right. I'm sorry for being such a burden. In any case, I'll help too. Let's repay the debt and turn the business around." "Thank you, Emily." After that, I went back to the office to explain the situation and arranged to work remotely. I focused on making sales to the father's factory clients and investigating the work environment to identify improvements. The father, not wanting to be a burden, regained his strength and was able to leave the hospital early. The morale in the company is vastly different when the president is present. Even without doing the actual work, just having the father present boosted the employees' motivation. I visited various clients with my father, fervently requesting them to raise their transaction prices. Two companies, admitting they had initially set the price too low, agreed to increase it. Another issue was the wages. Apparently, my elder sister had been working as an office worker at the factory without me knowing for a few years. She was demanding a high salary of $3,000 per month, and my mother had convinced my father to pay her. This burden was impacting the wages of the father and the other employees. I reprimanded my mother and father, and adjusted my sister's salary to an average amount while increasing the wages of other employees. The morale of the employees increased even more, and their work quality and speed improved. Thanks to this, we secured new clients and started making a profit. The final problem was the large debt. I showed my passbook to my father in private. "What? How did you save so much? I've been earning quite a bit. I've also been studying stocks for a while now and have been investing. I'll take care of the $2 million debt before it accrues interest. Manage the business properly and repay it little by little without being swayed by Mom and Mary. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Around 4 months have passed since I returned to my hometown to help revive my father's business. But there was someone who wasn't pleased with my return. That person is Mary. She wasn't happy that I suddenly came back, efficiently worked, and even managed to turn the business around. Furthermore, she was not pleased that her salary was significantly reduced. You always do unnecessary things. You should have just stayed in my shadow. My sister was always like this. She isn't satisfied unless she's gaining the most. I'm back. Ah, Tom, welcome back. Just like this, she quickly changes her attitude and expression depending on the person. In a sense, that's an amazing skill. Maybe she's suited for sales. My sister's husband, Tom, works as a public servant. He has good looks and a stable income. He's also very kind and approachable. He probably fell for my beautiful sister's advances. While I was pondering this, my mother called me. I went to her room, and she was sitting there with a solemn expression. "You can leave now." What do you mean? I said you don't have to live here anymore. But the company has just recovered, and Dad's health is? Your sister and her husband will look after things, so leave. You're not needed anymore. Just go back to Tokyo. I couldn't believe it. After all the cooperation, the moment the debt is gone, this happens. It's too much of a sudden change. Maybe I was overjoyed being relied on by my mother for the first time. She was just trying to use me. Fine, I'm leaving. When I started packing my things, mother and sister were smirking and saying things like, "Finally." I thought this day would never come. In front of my room. Then, as I drove home, I received a call from my father. "Hey, Emily, where are you? I'm sorry, I couldn't stand Mom and the others anymore. Can we meet?" Yes. It was surprising that my father came all the way to Tokyo. I had him come to my house. This is the first time my father has come to Tokyo. He was amazed. "Wow, are the apartments in the city so luxurious?" "Well, I think the rent here is relatively high." "Emily, I'm sorry. After all you've done, it has come to this." "It's okay, Mom's personality won't change. I have caused you more inconvenience than I can ever make up for. So I'm thinking of letting Mom and Mary experience some hardships too." The $2 million you covered for, you prepared a loan agreement, right? When I die, it will remain as a negative legacy. Don't say such an unlucky thing like dying. Actually, I have cancer. It was detected when you were helping with the management, and I had a medical examination. I only have a short time left. Oh no, I don't want to bother you anymore. So, sign this paper to renounce the inheritance. Dad's eyes were serious. I did as told, signing to renounce the inheritance. Never forget, I consider you the most precious in the world. Although Father's words were somewhat uncomfortable, I was glad he said that. He passed away a week after that. He probably thought this was the only chance he had, so he came all the way to Tokyo. After finishing all the funeral affairs, I told my mother and sister, I will take care of Father's memorial services. Mother and sister probably getting what they wanted, happily agreed. You're willingly taking care of such troublesome and expensive things. I don't understand the way altruistic people think. I am cutting ties with you too. I'm taking my father back with me. Haha, we're glad you're the one cutting the ties. The company is doing well. We don't need you. I see. Well, take care. Oh, Tom, be careful. They might exploit you in various ways. Don't let your jealousy make you say stupid things. My apologies. I guess we won't be seeing each other anymore then. I said that and left my parents' house. Needless to say, I was bombarded with calls from my mother and sister. I ignored the calls at first, but got too annoyed with it, so I took the call. Hello, what's going on? Why is there a $2 million debt left as an inheritance? Because it's the money I lent to Dad. What? You'll have to work hard to pay it back. I suppose it should be fine if the business is doing well. Unless someone decided to raise their own salary without permission. Why? Why were you able to prepare such a huge amount of money? Unlike you, I've worked hard. I earn a high salary and make money from stocks. By the way, I'm currently living in a luxury apartment. No way. You have a higher status than me. Seems so. Good luck with the debt. Saying that, I hung up and blocked her number. By the way, there was an employee at my father's factory whom I had become close with. Apparently, my sister and mother were exploiting the company, reducing employees' salaries to fill their own pockets. Consequently, many employees left. As expected, the business couldn't continue and was on the brink of bankruptcy. Tom also initiated a divorce to escape from my sister. With the $2 million debt, and potentially more if the company goes bankrupt, it seems the price of their previous extravagant behavior is catching up to them. But it doesn't concern me anymore. Meanwhile, I continue to work hard and invest. I'm also in a romantic relationship. Everything is going well both personally and professionally. My boyfriend is a lawyer with a high income. He's also good at cooking and has a kind nature, truly an ideal partner. Recently, he proposed, and I look forward to building a happy family with him.